are still probably at least a month away from the end of former Illinois House Speaker Mike Madigan's corruption trial, but we wanted to check back in on how testimony is going in this lengthy undertaking. For that, we turn once again to our Irv Miller, our legal analyst. Good morning, Irv.
Good morning.
Thanks for being here.
Always a pleasure.
This is a long one. This trial is a long one. The most recent sort of high-profile witness was, of course, former Alderman Dana Kozlov. His testimony. How do you think that's gone? How do you think it's been received by the jury since the prosecution rested?
Well, I think it's gone well for both sides. It's gone really well for the government because the government doesn't really have to rely on his credibility. He could be the biggest liar in the world, and when he raises his right hand, he could tell every lie on the stand. The important part of his testimony were the tape recordings. The tape recordings don't lie. On the other hand, the defense, to answer your other half of your question, is they probably think that it's gone very well too because they've spent hours trying to dirty him up. And yes, they did dirty him up. But my point is it doesn't make any difference. It's all the important, relevant information is on tape that the jury has heard.
So that's one thing I was going to ask you, and I was going to jump ahead to that question in my own mind, and that is, you don't think that the defense's efforts to paint Kozlov as untrustworthy, to diminish his character, is actually going to have any sort of impact?
You know, it may have an impact on one or two jurors, but the other group of jurors who have basically heard these tapes and said, listen, I understand that he's not a reliable witness. He's a liar. However, what we heard isn't a lie, and what they heard is the substantive evidence, the important things that the government is trying to use to convict Mr. Madigan and Mr. McLean.
One of the things that I think is interesting is how directly Kozlov and the former speaker, Mike Madigan, have talked about so-called quid pro quo, right?
Time to say.
It is at this hour of the morning, Irv. And, a lot of this is on, of course, those tapes. Does that make this game over because they're actually having discussions about, doing one thing in exchange for another?
It's not the end of the ball game, but it's a little piece of the puzzle. The fact that Kozlov tried to use those three words, and I'm not going to try to say them either, it tried to trap Madigan into basically confessing to what was going on. But if you recall from the testimony, a few days later, Madigan came up to him and said, hey, listen, don't use that language. That's not what's going on. It's trying to get these people good lawyer service, and that's why I'm involved. So it doesn't help the government all that much. It's not nearly the bombshell that happened in the Burke trial, where you had those, have we landed the tuna, or has the cash register rung yet? Those were bombshells. This is just a little piece of the action.
Yeah, well, I know we've got, probably another 4 weeks to go in this trial, right?
I don't think it's going to last that long. I think the government is going to rest this week, and I can't imagine that there's going to be that many witnesses that the defense is going to be calling in order to keep this thing going. I think it's gone a little quicker right now. It started slow, but it's going to go quicker now because once the government rests, then the worst decision for a defense attorney is, do I put my client on the stand?
Yeah.
That's the toughest one. I don't think they're going to testify, but yet I guarantee you they spent this weekend making that final decision as to whether either or both of them are going to testify.
Oh, that's really interesting. Well, so this could wrap in a few, and maybe the jury gets it around the holidays. But we'll talk more about that next time we see you.
Sounds good.
All right, Irv, thanks so much, CBS.